So yeah, we're going to talk about it. I'm going to ask this question during the panel. I don't know if calling these emerging markets is quite accurate or not, but we'll get into that. But we're gonna focus on three areas: Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland. Right next to me, if you look at the agenda, and you were paying attention this morning, you'll notice this is not Robert Skalina. It's Jan again. Robert is unfortunately got a very serious case of man flu and couldn't make it. But we wish him the best, and thank you very much, Jan, for stepping in. Next is Lejman, who is the head of the Polish desk at WH Partners, a law firm I'm sure you're all familiar with. And at the end, Gábor Helembai, who is senior associate at Bird & Bird here in Budapest. I'm going to start with Gábor right at the end. Hello. Because we're in Hungary, it makes sense that we should start there. I guess the kind of flashpoint in Hungary that most people are aware of would be the what looked like a pretty landmark CJEU ruling about the relationship between land-based operators and online operators and the licensing system. The reality of how the application of that ruling has played out is a bit more complicated. Could you run us through briefly, bring everyone up to speed on what the ruling said, and maybe talk about a year or more after that, what the reality is now?
Hi, good morning. So, thanks for the very interesting question. The regulatory landscape in Hungary is quite boring, at least in the last 2 years, because
okay.
nothing.
Moving on. No.
I mean the regulatory landscape, because it has not been changed in the past 2 years. But yes, we had these two landmark decisions from the European Court of Justice, which stipulated that the Hungarian regulation is not in compliance with the EU regulation because it's against the free movement of services within the EU. So basically, I can summarize in short that if you are an operator based in the EU, you can freely provide your services in Hungary. At least that was the final conclusion of these judgments. On this very day when these judgments were revealed, the Hungarian government made a press release that they will not change anything, and they will keep chasing the operators. However, at least what I experienced, it's not the case. The practice of the Hungarian gambling authority changed because, as far as I know, they are only chasing operators who are coming outside of the EU, and at least in my practice in the last 1.5 years, I've never met a case where the authority tried to catch an EU operator.
Do you think that's because they're aware that if they tried any sort of enforcement, that the operator in question would have a pretty strong legal case to go back to the European courts and fight it?
Yes, exactly. Of course, first the authority makes an administrative decision, which will, of course, be in compliance with the Hungarian regulation. But these administrative regulations decisions could be challenged in front of the court, whereby you can refer to the landmark decisions of the European Union. So
it'd probably be useful actually if you could explain what was it that the European Court had a problem with, so far as Hungarian legislation is based.
Yeah, the problem was that the regulation is very restrictive and discriminative against the other operators not based in Hungary. Because first of all, if you want to run an online casino, first you have to have a concession for a land-based casino, and the concession, the procedure to get a concession is not transparent according to the European Court of Justice, and it very advantageous for the local operator.
And is there any prospect of that changing? Not that it sounds, from the sounds of it, it's not something that the Maltese and other European-based operators will necessarily be pushing for, but the European Union might. I mean, is there any prospect of Hungary reworking its gambling legislation, or are we just going to carry on as we are for the time being?
As far as I know, there's no plans to change the regulation. I think one reason could be that currently only 2 online casinos have license in Hungary, and in addition to this, the fully state-owned gambling organizer has a license to run a sports betting organization, and all these 3 entities are doing well. They raise the revenues, so at least their point of view, no need to panic.
Do we have any idea? Is there any data at all on what gets called channelization in some markets? How big is the grey market? Do we know? Is it a mystery?
No, because it's a grey market, there are no official data, so it's very difficult to estimate the market. The only data we have, and it's public, the annual report of the state gambling organizer. Last year, in 2018, the sports betting market was about 200 million euro.
Okay, that was an incredibly smooth segue, as you're about to find out, to talk about Poland, where there is some data on the grey market. So yeah, there's been a report published recently which has created a bit of a stir. If you could talk us through what that says.
Good morning, everyone. For having me here and for the nice introduction. Yes, in Poland, actually, the special report prepared for the Polish Supreme Audit Office was published at the beginning of this September this year. So we have some data regarding the grey market in Poland. So according to this report, the grey market is still more than 50% in Poland. So illegal operators still account for like around 51% of the market. So because in spite of the fact that the amendment to the gambling law was introduced in 2017 and a very conservative system was introduced in Poland, I'm talking now about not only the blacklisting system, about the blocking mechanism. I guess you all know of these mechanisms. So this report shows that still this is not so effective that the Polish government would like to have. And the main issue is actually due to the clone domains, which are the nightmare for the Polish government. How it works, just to say you a couple of words about that. It's just when the one website, for instance, Casino 1 is blacklisted, the second one, Casino 2, is created. So it's like a play with the Polish government. So that's the main issue.
If you look at you can go and look at the blacklist if you like. It's on their website, and you'll see the same names over and over again. Yeah. You know, 139.net.
Exactly.
You know.
I even check it for today for you. We have like 7,300 domains blacklisted as of today. Yes.
But the number of operators that relates to is a considerably smaller number, I would say, given the.
Yes, true.
So I mean, has there been any fallout politically from this report at the moment? I mean, have politicians felt the need to address it?
Actually, not yet. I mean, of course, there was a recommendation made by the Polish Supreme Audit Office for the Ministry of Finance that in general they were optimistic about the results of this report, but the recommendation is to shorten the period of time when the Ministry of Finance find the domain which is actually created by the illegal operator, and from this moment to the moment when this domain is blacklisted. It's around like 15 days, 50, so 50 days. 50. So that makes a gap for the Polish players to use this domain during this period of time. So the recommendation was to shorten this period somehow. And
although
then
I'd suggest even if it was 15 days, that gives an online operator plenty of time to
yes,
change things.
true. So because it's around 50 days, that's plenty of time for the operators. Anyway, we are expecting to have a general election in Poland in October, and in the middle of October. So I don't think that upon the moment when the new government will be formed, any key decisions or other changes, I don't think so, that anything will happen.
But their recommendations were along the lines of do more and harder enforcement rather than perhaps we should open up the market a bit more or ease the licensing process.
Yes, but you know what? One of the key findings of this report was also what the office said, that the Polish government is actually not able to prosecute the foreign operators, the illegal operators who are organizing, for instance, online betting outside of Poland and offer this online betting for the Polish players. So what only they can do is to prosecute the Polish players, and that's it.
Do they do that? Do they prosecute Polish players?
Yes, I found that around maybe 30 cases for the recent years were filed, but only few of them actually ended with some criminal charges.
And you have to assume if 51% of the market is grey,
yes,
a lot more than 30 people.
You need to remember that Poland is like 38 million of people, so it's not much, I would say.
Jan suggested maybe they're just 30 very big VIPs, but probably not. Jan, so let's talk about Slovakia. There has been quite a big recent change in Slovakia. I mean, new Gambling Act. Run us through how that changes the landscape from previously.
Yeah, so basically the Slovakia is like fellow brother of the Czech Republic. We are close friends, and usually they follow what the Czech Republic is doing. So as the Czech Republic opened up the market 3 years ago, the Slovakia adopted new Gambling Act this year from January, is fully enforced from the March. And they also open up the market for foreign operators, and they established the online gambling regulation, which was not in place before, because before the online gambling was limited to the state-owned operator called Typos. They hold the monopoly for online gambling, meaning online casino, for lotteries, and then they also run online sport betting. But since the market has opened this year, it's open for private operators, so any operators which is based again in European Economic Area can apply for a license.
For which is that for betting and casino and everything, poker?
Currently, from July, you can apply for online casino and online sport betting, but you can be granted only the license for online casino so far. For online sport betting, you can be granted the license from July 2020. So in less than a year, you can have like online sport betting and online casino in Slovakia. Again, on paper, because in reality, it's a little bit different, because there are some big burdens which deter, again, like foreign operators. It's not AML. In Slovakia, you can do AML remotely, but the biggest obstacle in Slovak regulation so far is its very high licensing fee for putting the license application. In Czech Republic, it's around 200 euros. In Slovakia, it's 3 million euro per product.
I believe you get a discount, don't you, if you do both?
Yeah, there is nice discount. So it's 3 millions for sport betting, 3 millions for online casino. But if you apply for both, you pay just 5 million.
Bargain.
You can save 1 million. It's good, like advertising.
And if memory serves, it's non-refundable, right? If you don't get a license, you don't get the money back.
You could get some money, portion of money back. So the maximum money you can get back is 80%, but there is a consideration of the regulator.
So, I mean, it sounds like, as you said, that Slovakia tends to follow the Czech Republic. It sounds like there are going to be similar issues there that there have been in Czech Republic, where although the way that the act is drafted makes it look like you could probably apply for a license, in practice, as you mentioned earlier, there are two foreign companies in the Czech Republic. I mean, are we looking at a similar situation where the realities of getting a license are going to make it very unlikely that we see an influx of European operators?
Yeah, I mean, like in Slovakia, it's better maybe situation from the tax point of view. There is currently like 22% GGR tax for both product, which I think it's good and manageable for foreign operators. But the biggest obstacle is this license fee, and also what I see, it's very hard, and it's similar to all the jurisdictions here in this region. It's very hard to get a license because the licensing procedure is very rigid, very functional. The regulators are not very open to communicate in English, so it's very hard to get like substantial information which you need for a decision to go on the market. So I understand that for foreign operators it's really headache, because even for us, and we speak the same language, it's sometimes very hard to get like relevant information from regulator.
Okay. Turning back to Hungary for a little bit. I'm interested in understanding a bit more what the kind of shape of the market is with regards to advertising. I mean, you obviously have, as we discussed, have a pretty big grey market. I mean, do those operators advertise on? Are they on TV? Are they online? Or
Yeah.
you know, are they visible?
Yes, they are visible. It is explicitly stipulated in the law that it's forbidden to advertise unlicensed gambling operations. We are working together with the Hungarian Direct Marketing Association. So we sent an inquiry to the Hungarian Consumer Protection Authority, which is the competent authority for advertising, and we received the quite a similar reply that they are government administrative bodies, so they have no options but to follow the Hungarian rules. So. But there was a note at the end of the letter that, of course, you can challenge the decision of the administrative body and go to the court, where you can refer to the relevant EU regulation.
I mean, so if it's illegal but it's happening, is there any? You said that enforcement against the operators is kind of not really happening, but is there any action being taken against the media companies that do the advertising? Like, for example, similar to what happens in Norway or what happened in Sweden before the new act, where they were going after the newspapers and the TV companies and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I had no information about this, but based on the previous experience, the fines were not really scary, about 100 or 200 euros, so it was not a big deal for paying the fines.
Okay, looking back to Poland again. I'm interested in talking a little bit about the casino situation, where the lottery operator has a monopoly. I mean, and you mentioned since the amendments came in 2017, that's kind of enshrined that. I mean, my favourite element of that initially was that the company, they also had a monopoly over slots outside casinos, right? And they were
Moderator sportowy,
yes,
I guess.
yeah.
Yes.
And they're glad that you said that, not me. And they're originally, if I'm not mistaken, the plan was for them to have slot machines produced partially by the state-owned company that makes weapons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I was unfortunately hasn't happened. They've ended up buying a bunch from one of the big slot companies. Yeah, they tried. I wanted to see what that was going to be like. Was it going to be like a Kevlar slot machine or something? I don't know. But anyway, could you talk a little bit about where we are in that process? They've opened up a few of their slot halls now.
Yes, they opened the online casino in 2018 in December, as far as I remember. So I know that the casino is now working, but I heard the opinion from the players that it's actually the games and the products offered by this casino are actually not good for the players. I mean, the quality is, like you can imagine, this is the state-owned company. Also, you mentioned that the Totalizator Sportowy, because this is the company owned by the state, which can offer, the only one company who can offer the online casino. And they also entered into contract with, as you mentioned, with the company who actually produces the weapons, not the slot machines. So what happened in Poland after this contract was, I can say because it was, you could read about that in the newspapers. So So what can happen, as you can imagine, this producer couldn't actually produce the good slot machines.
What a surprise.
Yes. So finally, as far as I know, Totalizator Sportowy bought in 2018 some slot machines from Germany. And then I know that it's still an issue regarding this contract, whether it will be finalized between Totalizator Sportowy and between this company. As far as I know, these slot machines which were produced by this Polish company weren't collected actually by the Totalizator Sportowy yet due to some technical problems and technical issues. I don't know details, but I guess that the quality of these slot machines are not that Totalizator Sportowy expected.
I'd like to see one anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Jan, I want to ask you a slightly more philosophical question about the region. I mean, we see a fairly common repeating story. We've discussed it already today, where governments develop regulation which in theory looks all right on paper, but in practice is actually pretty challenging for anyone that isn't an incumbent operator. And it seems particularly endemic to the Central European region that this happens. I mean, do you have any idea, what are your thoughts on why this is such a common theme?
I think we touched this a little bit before. I believe there are like three main reasons behind that. The first one is that because the markets were restricted to the domestic companies, they really become very strong and they have big power to lobby for their interests, and they try to keep the market for themselves. That's, I think, the first reason. The second reason is the one that I was also mentioning, that it was not always like a free decision of the regulator to open up the market. It was in many cases forced by the European Commission, so it was not really intent to open up market and get as many operators as possible. And the third reason I see it's that really the licensing system are very complicated in these countries. It's very formal, and for foreign operators it's very complicated to understand.
Is that true across different industries then? That's a general thing that licensing is quite a complicated procedure?
Yeah, my experience, and I was the member of the European Commission working group on online gambling, and I was always like jealous listening to the guys from France or Spain. They were saying, okay, in the licensing process, we just want to see that the operator is a good guy, they have enough money, and they can prove that they can do the business correctly, and they have like margin of appreciation in the licensing process where they can judge whether they meet this criteria, whether they meet this burden. And in our jurisdiction, we need to say, okay, you need to have 200 employees, you need to prove this by putting this amount of money, you need to prove that this requirement by this, and it's very functional, and for foreign operators it's very hard to understand why, so silly requirements. Like in Czech Republic, you need to prove that you are like well equipped to run the operators, that you will present the Ministry of Finance 5 CVs of people that are working 3 years in the gambling industry. Right. So that's really not how to prove that you are like equipped to run properly the gambling. It's really just formality. So for many, and it's the case also for test labs and operators, some requirements seems to be very silly. And if you run the operation in many jurisdictions, then for you it's very hard to understand why this particular jurisdiction is asking for this weird stuff.
Thank you. I mean, I've got a couple more questions. I think I've maybe got time for one more. Oh, no. Okay, no more. But I will quickly ask if there's any questions from the audience. Does anyone any questions about these jurisdictions or Central Europe in general? Oh, yeah, over there.
Jan, one question, maybe also interesting for the audience, I think, as I understood, this situation in Slovakia, you have to pass the technical testing first with your products before you can apply for an operative license. Is this correct? So it completely works the other way around as usual.
Yeah, basically you can open up the licensing procedure, but then you need to go to testing, and so it's not this way. So there are operators, I ask because there is independent regulatory body which is established in Slovak Republic.
Correct.
And the information is not like officially available, but I try to communicate with them, and they told me that there are like 3 license application for online already pending. So there are operators who ask for a license, and currently they are testing with the local Tesla, because on the market currently there is only like Slovak Tesla called it TSU, and that's the only option how you can do it. So currently it's possible to open up the licensing procedure and then go testing. It's happening right now.
Because as I got one of the first feedbacks from the regulator, this was more or less our first finish testing, then apply for an operative license, but I found a little bit weird.
That's what I was mentioning, that sometimes it's very hard to get like relevant information, because the people at the authority do not speak very well English in some cases, and they are new in the industry, and they are like not very know what to do. So basically you can get different information on different time framework as well.
Fun.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Oh, yep, we've got one down here. Sorry, guys.
So I would like to ask a question in regards to Poland. From what I know, online casino gambling is totally against the law. It's considered to be criminal to gamble at an online casino. You guys only offer licenses for sports books.
Yes.
Is that going to change in the future? Because I know that the political parties are against that, even though you do have land-based casinos. Where people are going and entertaining in slots and so on and so forth.
Yes, correct. The only one online casino could be organized by, and is organized by, Totalizator Sportowy, which is the state-owned company, and that's it when we consider the online casino. Of course, it's possible to get a license to open land-based casino, which is different. This is not, like I said, this is a monopoly for the online casino. When you are talking about the online gambling in Poland, you can the private companies can only apply for a permission to get a license for the betting or some kind of lotteries. So this is the only one. And you ask whether it can be changed or not. Like I said, we are expecting to have a general election in October. But I also don't, I assume, we don't know that yet, but probably the same party will create government after this election. So I don't expect that anything will change in the future, in the near future regarding this. If so, I guess that somehow we'll need to live with this conservative system.
So the reason I'm asking, and this is the the upcoming question, is because you have stated that you do have an online casino owned by the state company,
yes, exactly,
which is a monopoly. Poland being an EU country, it goes against EU laws, what we're seeing in Hungary. I might be incorrect about it, but this is where I don't understand the legislation. Why they're having issues in Hungary, and you guys are not having issues in Poland, basically?
Oh, this question is quite complicated.
That is a good
I have
question.
to say that we have a couple of cases which were heard by the district courts, and even we as a legal office asked, I'm talking about the first instance, whether the Polish Gambling Act is compatible with the European law, but as of now, we actually in all cases the district court said, and we also applied to and asked the district court to send some questions to ECJ. So what the Polish court did is actually said that this court is also an European court, so it's able to interpret law by its own. So it's no need to ask ECJ. And this is the first thing. And the second thing, according to the judges from the first instance court, Polish law is actually compatible with the European law. And then we also submitted appeals to these decisions of these district courts. But as of today, we still wait for the date of hearings of these cases by the Supreme Court. What we did, we also, not only we, I know that many of some colleagues from other legal offices in Poland also did the same. But as of today, no first decision regarding this issue you just mentioned. So we are waiting for the first hearing to get to know what's the opinion of the Polish Supreme Court, and then we will see.
So some hope,
you
but I
very
wouldn't hold
much.
your breath. Okay, I think we better call it there. But I'm sure the guys will be happy to answer any questions during the breaks if you have any more. So just join me in thanking them, please.